Hello everyone, this is Joshua Smith of Apollo's Artifacts. We're going to take yet another trip into California moral degeneracy. We're going to be looking at this article from the Daily Signal called California Public Schools Promote Polyamory for Preteens, because that's just the group that you need to be teaching that to. This girl actually has the look on her face that I probably would have had if they were trying to teach me this kind of stuff back then too. It was a good choice of picture there. And this is by Kathy Ruse, a senior fellow for legal studies at the Family Research Council, who I'm sure leftists condemn as radical far right-wing extremists. That's how the leftist brain works, by the way. In other words, it doesn't. Left-wing policies don't work. Lots of leftists don't actually work. Just sit around siphoning off the government. So it starts here. The world recently learned that the American Psychological Association promotes polyamory, swinging, and relationship anarchy. Its experts say it's healthy and ethical. They're crazy. Good assessment. Now, all of this stuff that she will be talking about in here comes directly out of the Keynesian philosophy. I've covered Kinsey on here many times before. Kinsey was a moral degenerate himself. He was an absolute sexual pervert, and he was a promoter of pedophilia. In fact, he was a person who actually paid multiple pedophiles to continue their pedophilic abuse of children and to send in their, quote, data to him so that he could use that in his studies. And predictably, Hollywood promotes Kinsey all over the place as if he were some sort of latter-day genius, as if he were the second coming of Darwin or Freud or whatever else. And in many ways he actually was, because there are a lot of dark sides to the results of Darwinian thinking and Freudianism as well. But this episode is not the place for that. We move down a little bit here to a section called Targeting California Kids. It was a California teacher who discovered the, quote, LGBT consensual non-monogamy task force, because that's just the sort of thing that you need a task force for, right? That's the kind of thing that these little think tanks come up with. You know, we need to fund a task force to promote yet some other ridiculous pet project of leftists as they go about destroying Western civilization pillar by pillar. She was reviewing the State Department of Education's, quote, health lesson mandates for the fall and stumbled across a term she didn't know. She went to look it up and was led to the APA. California instructs teachers to talk to youngsters about sex partners. They are to avoid terms like boyfriend and girlfriend because, quote, some students may be non-monogamous. This is in the lesson plan for 12-year-olds. And I guess our good friends at Hollywood are out ahead of this agenda, of course, as usual, promoting it in the movie called Good Boys, which is all about 12-year-olds in the 6th grade or so, learning all about all kinds of hyper-sexualized behaviors and drug abuse and everything else.
I have an idea. Type kissing. Are you 18 or older?
How many husbands does she have?
The guy didn't even know how to kiss. He was just licking that woman.
Spy on my neighbor. She's a total nymphomaniac.
She starts fires.
No, she's a nymphomaniac. Someone who has sex on land and sea.
Sure.
Oh my God, there's Molly in there.
You had us bring drugs to a fucking playground?
Stop treating us like kids.
We're tweens.
We know how things work.
An indoor swing?
What are you doing? That swing is for sexing. People do sex on it. Still don't know how to kiss.
Your parents have a CPR doll. We can practice kissing on that.
Stop! You should never kiss someone without their permission.
May I kiss you?
What do you like about me?
You're sweet. You smell good. You're a really pretty CPR doll.
I consent.
And it goes on down here to where it instructs the teachers that they must pay special emphasis in their classes to non-heterosexual ways. Quote, teachers should affirmatively acknowledge the existence of relationships that are not heterosexual by actively using examples of same-sex couples in class discussions. Why should they do this? Why should they be talking about these kinds of things at all? Oh, and then, of course, they have to pull the so-called safe environment garbage as if that has anything to do with it at all. Speaking as a parent, I don't want you talking to my kids about this stuff at all. It isn't your business. It isn't your place to do so, okay? That's my role. That's my job, not yours, not the state, not any despicable task force. And then we move on down and find out even more predictable things here. Planned Parenthood is apparently pre-approved, as it is given a special plug in the directives by the 7th and 8th grade. This is a quote, by the way. Students are often more willing and eager to engage with guest speakers from local nonprofit organizations such as Planned Parenthood, who, of course, don't only do abortions, of which there have been about 60 million since Roe versus Wade, but Planned Parenthood is up to all kinds of other things promoting this sort of stuff. Polysexuality, pansexuality, everything that Kinsey talked about, okay? And because the inevitable result of all of this is not a slippery slope argument at all. Where this is all leading is going to eventually be they're going to clamor for the acceptance of pedophilia. That's where it's going to go. And after that, probably bestiality and necrophilia. In fact, all of the stuff that people like Jimmy Savile were up to. The future, at least the left-wing vision of the future, is an Epstein world, baby, and they can't wait to get there. And as we move down further, we see as they start to talk about so-called furries here, as she says, poor souls who believe there are animals and self-identify as such. Listen, they don't actually believe that, okay? People who say this are just looking for attention, okay? They're just wanting acceptance, or they're wanting to stand out in some way. They're not actually people who believe that they are some sort of an animal. If they were, they would have a severe mental disorder, okay? But as she points out here, most people don't even know the first thing about any of this kind of stuff going on. And just as she says here, none of it is accident. It is all part of a plan. It is all designed. And yes, it is all funded by us and the likes of George Soros and others, and the Kinsey Institute and SICUS and all of these other nasty little organizations, whose sole goal is to destroy Western civilization from within. That is their target. That is what they are constantly working on. If there's any pillar of Western civilization that you can think of, there's a leftist out there trying to bring it down, trying to dismantle it. And, of course, California has made it increasingly difficult to homeschool your kids. And even if you do homeschool your kids out there, many times they still try to impose this same kind of propagandistic trash on the homeschooling parents. She concludes here with a pretty good sentence, because as Abraham Lincoln said, the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. And you can see that's the battle that is taking place right now in 2019, is you have these extreme radical leftists out there who basically are a bunch of socialists and communists, and they just want to destroy everything so that they can have power, because power is the only thing that they care about. So they're basically tearing up the Democratic Party right now, to turning it into something that even, recent generations of Democrats don't even recognize anymore. They're ultimately becoming their own worst enemies. And there's no self-correcting mechanism that can be involved, because they don't ever talk to or associate with anyone who disagrees with them. In fact, they can't even understand the concept that there are people out there who disagree with them. This comes out, if any of you have seen the transcript from the meeting that the editor of the New York Times had with his staffers, and basically where he's telling them that they're going to reorient the entire paper to move away from the Russia collusion narrative, and they're going to turn it all into Trump is a racist, horrible, horrible racist, be scared of the big mean racist and all this kind of stuff. But he's even having to tamper down some of his own employees, telling them that some of your cohorts here are going to be writing articles that you vehemently disagree with, and you don't need to be so hostile to one another about these kinds of things. But this is because all they know are other leftists and other left-wing ideas. They don't leave Manhattan. They don't leave New York City. They don't see anything outside of the pavement, okay, and the concrete buildings. That's it, okay? These are people who were raised K through 12 in schools, who taught all of this kind of crazy nonsense, okay? Then they went to university, and then straight from there to either being professors or journalists, okay? So they don't even know that other people think differently than they do, okay? And one of the things when you're a libertarian like me, or if you're a conservative, is you're very well aware that other people don't always think the same way that you do, that they have other ideas, other concepts, other perspectives, okay? And that there's going to be disagreement. But I think that's why the conservative right now anyway is so hardened to these arguments from the left, because they've been exposed to multiple different views for many, many years. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.